Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So there's been some statistics recently put out there that go over, the number of people that tend to really get a certain number of wins in arena, and it's really low. You're talking just a few percent of people are able to get 12 or 11 wins in arena, and I've kind of gone over a lot of the points, a lot of what it takes. You really need the experience. You got to know what cards are going to be played against you at any given turn, more than likely, and being kind of exclusive about it. So for instance, if you think it's a good time for your opponent to flame strike you and he doesn't flame strike you, you can play as if the opponent doesn't have a flame strike and hopefully doesn't draw it next turn or maybe the turn after that. So there's that type of aspect. There's the aspect of just playing the game on your own fairly well. You want to try to not miss the lethal, the legal, the chat legal, and all the rest. You guys know all of that, but there's something that I haven't really talked about, is the style of play. And a few other streamers approached me and talked to me that I have a pretty unusual style of play as compared to them, and I want to talk to you guys about that and just more specifically kind of my idea of how I approach selecting the deck and playing through it. So a lot of people play decks fairly aggressively, and you see this quite a bit in Constructed, because in Constructed you can choose all the cards that you want to be playing. In Arena, you can kind of do the same. You can play an aggressive deck, but you need cards that heavily complement it. So for instance, if you're playing Rogue, yeah, you can make a deck full of 2 and 3 drops, and if you have 1, maybe 2 sprints, and you're lucky enough to run into them right as you run out of cards, you're going to do pretty well. But every now and then, it's not going to work out so well. It's going to be the case where, you play your 2-drop, they play their 2-drop, you play another 2-drop, they play their 3-drop. You play 2 2-drops and they play like a Sen'jin, and you start getting 2 for 1 and you start losing cards, and if you can't get them back, you're going to run out before your opponent is dead very, very frequently. Now, some people are pretty successful at playing aggro, and there are advantages to playing aggro. Mainly, the games are going to last a lot less time. You're going to be able to do more of them, and maybe for some people, their patience allows them to play better because of this. For me, my strategy is I usually play very slow decks, not always, but usually, and I always play, like, the whole game for me is understanding what my opponent has in his hand. And clearly, because I'm streaming to a lot of people, and for a lot of people, doing well in arena is pretty important, so they get to see my hand at the same time. But for me, the fun of it is just that, excluding cards, understanding what they might have, and playing with that. Because if you always keep that in mind, you're going to have the advantage usually, just card for card. And what that means is, yeah, you might take a lot of damage early on, but in the end, you'll probably have more cards than your opponent. You'll probably have a better board than your opponent. Obviously, this has some exceptions because, you can't win every game in Arena. But the drafting process is pretty similar across all the decks. There's a lot of good drafting lists out there. Trump's made one, I made one some time ago. But the idea is that these are not absolute. I made a Rogue deck yesterday. I did get pretty lucky, to be honest, but I think I went 12-1 with it. And, I ended up skipping 4 or 3 Assassin Blades. I even picked a Bomber over one near the end. I picked a Chill Wind over one. It was like the second last card. I skipped an Eviscerate for... yeah, I'm not too sure, but it was a card that normally would not be quite as well rated. And I did so just because, I don't really want too many weapons when I play a Rogue, even though Assassin's Blade is a great card. I had a Deadly Poison, I had a Perdition's Blade. I kind of wanted a 3rd weapon, but I thought these cards fit the deck a little bit better. It didn't have that many 4-drops. Bomber is really overpowered on a Rogue because, you can dagger up on 1 or on 2. Then you can drop the Bomber if it hits it once. You can finish off with a dagger. If it hits it twice, well, you're in a lot of luck. So, you kind of have to step outside the norm just a little bit, but it's something that experience will dictate, and you can't be, too shy from trying. At the beginning of Hearthstone, I 199, I don't know, probably like 8 or 10 times, somewhere around there. So, you know, it's something that you really got to go through, and you know, if you watch the streams and you know, get educated a little bit, maybe the learning curve is not quite as big, but it's something you have to understand. You know, the cards independently are what they are. You can compare them, but as you go through the draft, you want to have a fairly balanced curve. In my opinion, well, on my side of things, with my strategy at least, the best type of curve is to have almost a straight line, and you can mulligan fairly aggressively for 2 and 3 drops, and you know, as long as you don't miss both of them, you're usually fine, because the 4 is a big part of the game. You know, Chillwind Yeti, Sen'jin Shieldmaster, even the Brewmaster, you know, they're going to be able to take on usually the earlier part of the game that you may have missed up to that point. The other side is, when you're playing, I noticed a lot of people are really aggressive with the cards. You know, they try to play as much as they can. They try to use the coin as early as possible. I kind of like to save these things, you know. I don't really push too much on the board unless I absolutely have to. And even if I have 2 2-drops, often I won't coin. You know, in some cases, if I don't have a 4, you know, I'll use the 2 on 2, and then on 3 I'll use the 2 and then the hero ability or something like that. So, you know, you really have to be flexible. Hearthstone is a game where it's still, you know, while it is fairly solidified in what you can do in it, it's much better to have the idea, the open mind of, you know, changing things up, specifically doing something that may not be the correct way, but, you know, you might learn something from it, just, you know, to develop your own strategy on how you play through the game. And yeah, don't be afraid to lose. I know losing sucks, trust me, but in the end, you'll probably be a better player if you pay attention enough. So, hope you guys learned something, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.